Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF Boss Mustapha, has admitted that the principles and protocols of coronavirus lockdown were unintentionally violated during the burial rites of Abba Kyari, the late Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari. He also stated that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed some neglected basic infrastructure in Nigeria and that the country will not remain the same again once the pandemic is over. Still with us to have a conversation indeed is security expert Dickson Osajie. Thank you, Dickson, for staying with us.
Thank you.
And joining us live in the studio via phone is legal practitioner Taiwo Akinlami. Thank you, Mr. Taiwo, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Members of the Presidential Task Force, there's a PTF on COVID-19, have admitted to unintentional violation of the principles and protocols of the coronavirus lockdown during the burial rites of Abba Kyari. That's the late Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari. How valid is their claim? Mr. Taiwo, this goes to you first.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. One, it's commendable that Mr. Boss Mustapha, the Secretary to the federal government, has come out to acknowledge the fact that they broke all the protocol and all the rules that they made by themselves as to COVID-19 issue. Now, but what I don't understand there is the word unintentional. These things were not committed by robots. Burial was taking place. They saw the crime or the breach continued to the end. At the end of the breach, there was no apology which emanated from the government without the prodding of the public. Now, the entire public began to say what happened there was wrong and it was inimical to public health. Then it took 3 or 4 days for the Secretary of the federal government during a briefing, that's the Presidential Task Force briefing, to admit in passing that there was a breach. I think, having agreed that there was a breach, I don't understand the word unintentional. You know, because how do you commit, was it somnambulism? Was it that they were dreaming? Was it that they saw themselves in the burial? Something happened there. Okay, so let's go by the argument of Abba Kyari, that they didn't invite anybody, that they gathered together in Abuja. And then when they wanted to bury, people showed up. And so they couldn't disperse the people. The burial had to continue. What do you mean you cannot disperse the people? If it happened in Ojota, in Tabataba, in Ologuro, in Yonforogi, where the poor are, won't you use tear gas? Won't you disperse the crowd? So what are we talking about? What I'm just concerned about is the health of people who is affected by what they have done. What I'm talking about is that we saw the same thing in Lagos State. And the Lagos State government, who belongs to the same party in power, rose up in vengeance. The person involved was arrested, tried, while the corona was going on, when there was lockdown, and sentenced. So I think it's not enough for leadership must be by example. So it's not enough for Mr. Boss Mustapha to admit that they breached the rule. Where do we go from here?
Now, his words, it's called unintentional violation of protocol at Abba Kyari's interment. Now, doesn't it come off as gross misbehavior from those who set the law?
You see, as Taiwo rightly said, I really don't understand why Boss Mustapha will come and say the action was unintentional. This is our center of gravity, where laws drop down and split within the states. I am so amazed, I'm so pained to see a nation that sets laws that nobody should come and claim corpse that belongs to COVID-19 corpse. Burials are suspended, and at the same time you organize a beautiful burial, thousands of people flown into that place, and you say it was unintentional. That is a high state of inhuman behavior. For me, I just felt that we are not ready. We're not ready to drive this country forward. Because when we talk about leadership by example, we expected the federal government to exhibit an exemplary conduct in the management of this barrier. Now, in a barrier, for example, I've attended many barriers. When I was in the military, for example, when we lost a soldier in the battlefield, for example, we organized a burial party. There's a burial party. We will receive a briefing. This burial is taking place in XYZ location. When you get there, this is what is expected of you. At the end of the burial, we'll be debriefed. Now, who was in charge of this burial? Who was the burial party commander? Who was in charge of these guys that went to bury Abba Kyari? If there is nobody, or if there is no burial party commander, or if there is no burying party, I think that is just like an unprofessional conduct from the government. The apology is not acceptable because we're talking about human lives here. If that unprofessional conduct had resulted to the loss of any Nigerian life, can it bring back the human lives? So we should stop all this kind of behavior from the federal might.
All right, Tawakel, I mean, now, these principles for emphasis, and I'm going to stress, these principles for emphasis include the guidance provided on mass gatherings, social distancing, personal hygiene, and restriction of movement. That singular action was in complete defiance to these principles. What are the implications of this?
Well, unfortunately, I think the National Assembly, in Lagos State, there was a law which the Lagos State House of Assembly passed in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't think such law already exists at the federal level. So what we're talking about is a moral, to a very large extent. It is the fact that, number one, the Minister for Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, said COVID-19 corpses will not be released. They cannot be released because of the virtue of the fact that it can spread. Why was the corpse of the former secretary, chief of staff, why was he released? And if it was going to be released, under what circumstances was he supposed to be released? Somebody died in Lagos. You gathered people. You took the corpse from Lagos all the way to Abuja. Why was it not buried in Lagos? Why are people's lives supposed to be exposed? So what I think is this. So legally speaking, we may not be able to hold these people in terms of specifics. But when it comes to the fact that they swore to the Constitution, that is those who appointed them, swore to the Constitution that the welfare and the security of the people shall be the primary aim of government. So in COVID-19 era, what has become the primary welfare of government, which is the welfare and the security of the people? So when we talk about welfare, you made some rules. On the basis of these rules, there's social distancing. There's a rule on how to manage. NCDC released a document on how to manage a COVID-19 corpse. All of these were thrown into the dustbin because someone who is in power died. Now, please note, I sympathize with the family of the one who departed. I sympathize with the government for the person that they lost. This is not about the person they lost, because it was not the person that they lost that planned his own burial. It was the people that are around that planned the burial. So when it comes to the Constitution, the welfare and the security of the people shall be the primary aim of government. The government has not lived up to that constitutional provision, and those who handle that matter should honorably resign. Because if they do not, if it's going to end by just ordinary apology, what is the deterrence that if another person who is high up there dies tomorrow, the same thing will not be done and will be apologizing? PPE were seen in a video being dropped on the streets. Do we know how many people have been affected? Have we done the contact tracing of those who attended that burial? Now, look, AMVC in Lagos, and because there was an information that there were some people who came from abroad to be part of that program, Not that they were tested positive for COVID-19. Everybody who was in AMVC was asked to go into self-isolation. There was tracing and all of that. So it's not enough for the Secretary of the Federal Government to apologize. It is enough for us to know what steps have been taken. Who is being punished?
All right, Taiwo. Okay, just hold your thoughts there, Taiwo. You're fuming already, I can tell. Now, what brings a question to mind? Shouldn't there be an arrest and prosecution of these people by this time who violated the set protocols of the NCDC when it comes to restraint, social distancing, and not being seen in the way we saw them doing the interment? Shouldn't we be having arrest and prosecution right now going on?
You see, when it comes to management of disruptive behavior, there are various causes, emotional causes, injury, ailment. Now, we understand that somebody passes on and we sympathize with the family of the Abba Kyaris. People flew into the burial area to see the last corpse, the last burial of this great guy. We classify them as emotional mourners. Are you with me? I don't have a problem with them. Now, the problem I have is with the government. The government set a rules and regulation. NCDC instructions were violated. What the government should have done is to have condoned off that environment, are you with me, before the arrival of the cops. And immediately the cops arrive, only the burial parties should be allowed in with the imam or whoever is going to carry out the prayer activities. And this reminded me of what happened to Funke Akindele in some few weeks back. She was arrested and charged to court, and a verdict was vested on her. For me, the government should apologize to Funke Akindele with immediate effect and reverse that judgment, and let's start again. Because whatever is good for me should be good for you. Whatever is bad for me should be bad for you. Let's not believe that the law is meant for the elites, for the non-elites. The law is meant for each and every one of us. So government must set themselves as an example.
All right, Tayo Akinlami, do you think there should be arrest and prosecution for those who violated the protocols and guidelines of the NCDC at the funeral?
Well, as I said before, what law are we going to charge them under? I'm not aware that at the federal level, that has been backed up by the law, the same way it was done in Lagos State. You know, Lagos State has the law. Are you getting what I'm saying? Passed by the House of Assembly of Lagos State in response to the pandemic. But I'm not sure that law exists at the federal level. So what I'm saying is that, so when you arrest and you want to prosecute, there has to be a law that has been breached. There has to be a crime that has been committed. And there has to be punishment that has been prescribed by the law for such behavior. But that does not exist. That's why I said that the people, there must be a level of punishment. And I think honorably, everybody who participated in that burial should resign or should be fired.
Tawo, if I get you correctly, are you saying the cessation order and lockdown, as said by Mr. President, is not lawful enough to prosecute these people?
Well, you know, the lockdown. So there are two laws.
There was a cessation order. There was a lockdown. Yes.
And quarantine law. There's the Quarantine Act. Are you getting it?
Yes.
Then there is the power of the president to declare a state of emergency under the Constitution. So what I'm saying is that when you look at the Quarantine Act, it does not speak directly to lockdown. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
It does not speak directly to lockdown. If you take anybody before the court, there has to be clear charges. Which law are the person? So if you have somebody to go for, it's supposed to be quarantined now. Are you getting it? So, and the person refuses to, you can be talking about that. So it's not straightforward like that. And that is why I don't want to go by the way of the black and white of the law. And again, when you look at it, the people you are talking about, if they are responsible for making the law, they are responsible for breaking it, they are also responsible for adjudicating on it. Are you getting what I'm saying? So what needs to happen is to look, because and on the ground of technicalities, you see people arguing and getting away with blue murder. But what I think can be done is there has to be a level of deterrence. And that's why I'm saying that there has to be a kind of punishment from the commander-in-chief of the armed forces or the people involved who have admitted that they were wrong, the Gabashews of this world, the Secretary of the Federal Government, Boss Mustapha, and the rest of them, they should honorably resign.
Legal practitioner Taiwo Akinlami, thank you for joining us and for your interesting contributions.
Thank you very much.
Now, what was your path in short in all of this? What would you say at the end of the day?
It's a worrisome situation. Like Taiwo was rightly saying that people should be arrested. You see, when it comes to the burial was a ceremony. When you throw a party, people will definitely come. Yeah. Let's look at the burial as a party. And the cemetery was not a borderless cemetery. I saw the cemetery. It has access control. You know, when we talk about access control, there's an egress in and out. And we have people that are supposed to be in the access control. Definitely none of those guys, mourners, jumped through the fence. They went through the access control. So government has failed in the management of its access control, because I expected the federal government of Nigeria, as a lead example, to ensure that before these corpse gets to the cemetery, all access control mechanisms should be put in place. Who are allowed to come in? Every other person can view from afar. Nobody should have come into that place. So as it stands now, Boss Mustapha, I agree with Taiwo. You see, in Nigeria, Taiwo says Boss Mustapha should resign. People don't resign in Nigeria, even at the detriment of human life. In foreign place where you know, most of us go, if somebody tells you that you are a thief, whereas you are not a thief, for defamation of your character alone, without being found guilty, you just honorably resign.
Security expert Dickson Osajie, thank you very much for joining us on Plus Politics and for your insightful contribution. And thank you for staying with us. We'll take our Plus report now, and when we return, My Take. Stay with us.
Lagos, the epicenter of the coronavirus in Nigeria, has 3 isolation centers across the state. But many citizens have neglected the NCDC directive and visited private hospitals for care. Reacting to this violation, the NCDC has shut down 5 private hospitals temporarily after staff contracted the virus from infected patients. One of the hospitals is St. Nicholas. Plus TV Africa visited its Lagos Island branch, but access was denied. According to a source, the hospital is not being shut down, although a press release is to the contrary. We spoke to an expert who shed more light on why patients choose to visit private hospitals.
First of all, there are different categories of patients. Some patients will not even know that they have COVID-19 infection. They might think they just have, catarrh or cold, and they now go to their doctors. Okay, so that's one effect. They don't know that they have the diagnosis. They go now to their doctors instead of going to isolation center. Now, there are some patients, unfortunately, from the reports we have, they do have COVID-19 symptoms and they've been exposed. And when they come to their doctor, they deny all those symptoms and lie about it and then get admitted into these private hospitals that are not prepared to deal with infection. I can tell you that report that we have, a few number of them have been shut down now to decontaminate and put all their staff in quarantine. And as a matter of fact, we have report that some hospitals, nurses got infected, which is very unfortunate. And then the third part of it is that some people may think that the isolation centers are poorly equipped or dirty and not, suitable for their level of, satisfaction, and then they opt to they start going to private clinics, thereby exposing, those facilities. This is very unfortunate. I think we need to rethink the whole idea.
Right behind me is the St. Nicholas Hospital, Lagos Island, rumored to have been shut down according to a press release. But as you can see, that is not the case. For Plus TV Africa, Nimi Adekombi.
This is My Take. It is sad that the lockdown, which had been implemented for good reason, curbing the spread of coronavirus, has now led to the loss of lives and properties. Now fellow Nigerians are robbing other Nigerians of their belongings. Some have even been killed. And it's just week 4 of the lockdown. And with the number of cases rising steadily, there might be another extension of the lockdown. What will happen then? Would we resort to breaking into people's homes to relieve them of their belongings? My call is to Nigerians today. No one in the world today has it easy. COVID-19 has impacted all our lives. Let us be patient. Let us refrain from taking what is not ours and instead give it to the needy and less privileged. Let us also stay away from creating panic because according to Ted Turner, if you panic, that's a good way to lose. You have to stay in control. And also on COVID-19 protocols that were broken during the burial of Abba Kyari, I ask, why were the people present at the ceremony not sanctioned? Funke Akindele comes to mind. She was sanctioned. Why not these people? Because they are leaders or because they came to honor a close ally of President Muhammadu Buhari? No one should be above the law regardless of who they are, what they own, or who they know. Adhering to the rule of law would help us not only win this fight against coronavirus, but also build a country with a working system. I however believe that the SGF openly stating the neglect of basic infrastructures in Nigeria is commendable, but it is also a reprimand on the Nigerian government for not being in touch with the reality on ground and being desensitized to the plight of the health sector. As much as I would like to again criticize the government for abandoning these systems, I would rather ask them to take note of the lessons this season has brought out and work on them as soon as possible. We must work together for a greater Nigeria. And that's our show for tonight. We return same time tomorrow. Please practice personal hygiene and stay safe. We will overcome. Have a good night.